There is one thing that many parents never realize. You do not have to wait until your child can speak. You do not have to wait until your child starts school. You do not even have to wait until your child is old enough to remember what you do today. Because before your child can remember consciously, their brain has already started remembering in a different way. It remembers feelings. The feeling of being held when they are afraid. The feeling of having their cries answered. The feeling that someone always shows up at the right moment. Or the feeling that they have to handle everything alone. That is what makes the first year of life so remarkable. A baby cannot talk, cannot walk, does not understand the world. Yet their brain is doing the most important work of an entire lifetime. It is answering questions that one day your child will not even know they once asked. Is this world safe? Can people be trusted? Am I worthy of being loved? And what surprises many psychologists is this. The very first answers to those questions do not come from school, do not come from books, do not come from moral lessons. They come from the most ordinary days. A morning when you smile at your baby. A moment when you patiently wait for them to calm down. A hug after they cry, a gentle look in your eyes. Or sometimes they come from rushing, from stress, from long silence. The important thing is this. No parent gets everything right all the time, and no child needs perfect parents. What a child's brain truly needs is a presence that is steady enough, consistent enough, so that every single day, your child learns a little more that this world is worth stepping into. Maybe you have wondered before why some children grow up full of confidence, ready to try new things, not overly afraid of failure, while other children become anxious over the smallest change. A single rejection is enough to make them withdraw. Genetics plays a role. But it is not the whole story. Neuroscience shows that early experiences are like the first architect of the brain. Every interaction your child has with you strengthens thousands of neural connections, or removes them. The brain is always asking, what is important enough to keep? What is no longer necessary? If every time your child cries, someone calmly comes to them, the brain learns that hard times will pass. If every time your child explores with curiosity, they are encouraged, the brain learns that the world is a place worth discovering. If every time your child fails, someone believes they will try again, the brain learns that failure is not the end. That is how confidence is built. Not in a single day, not through empty praise, but through thousands of tiny experiences. What is fascinating is this. Many parents spend hours searching for toys that will make their child smarter, without realizing that the greatest gift for a child's brain is actually themselves. Your voice, your eyes, your smile, your calmness. No app can replace those things. No screen can copy them. No device can create the same feeling of safety as a loving adult who is truly present. In the next few minutes, we are going to explore the 7 most important stages of the first year of life, not to create more pressure, but to help you understand that some opportunities only exist for a very short time. If you recognize them, you do not have to become a perfect father or a perfect mother. You only need to be there at the right time, in the right way, and with enough love. Because sometimes, what changes a child's entire life is not one big decision, but hundreds of very small moments, moments that seem ordinary today, yet years later become the foundation of a person who knows how to love, knows how to trust, knows how to stand up after failure, and knows that no matter how vast the world outside may be, there will always be a place to come home to. But before we go through each stage, there is one truth that very few people ever tell parents. A child's brain does not develop on an adult schedule. It does not care whether today is Monday or Sunday. It does not know that you are busy. It does not know that you have just had a stressful day at work. It only does one thing. It watches. It takes everything in, and it learns. Every time you pick your baby up, their brain learns something. Every time you look into their eyes, a new connection is formed. Every time you smile back at their smile, another message is stored. The world responds when I reach out. On the other hand, if those moments are missed again and again, the brain still learns. But it learns something different. That is why what shapes a child is not only what parents do. It is also what parents repeat every single day. There is a famous study in neuroscience that shows, during the first year of life, the brain creates more neural connections than at any other stage of life. After that, the brain begins to prune them. The connections that are used often become stronger. The ones that are rarely used slowly disappear. Imagine you are building a city. Every experience your child has is a new road. The roads that are traveled every day become highways. The roads that are no longer used gradually become covered with grass. A child's brain works the same way. That is why no experience is ever completely meaningless, especially during the first year of life. This also helps explain why two children can grow up with almost the same material circumstances, yet see life in completely different ways. One child is always curious, always willing to try, not overly afraid of making mistakes, while the other child is always cautious, always waiting for someone else to decide for them. That difference usually does not begin with personality. It begins with thousands of moments when the brain receives different signals about the world. The first stage appears when a baby is only a few months old. This is when your child begins to discover a rule that seems very simple, yet becomes the foundation of taking initiative throughout life. Your child begins to realize that every action they take can create a result. One kick of the leg, the rattle shakes, one little coo, someone smiles back, one reach of the hand, an object moves. To adults, these are just ordinary things, but to a baby's brain, they are the very first proof that I can make something happen. This belief is far more important than most people realize, because later, when your child faces a difficult math problem, an exam, a job interview, or a major challenge in life, what keeps them trying is not only intelligence. It is the belief that, if I keep trying, things can change. That belief does not appear by chance. It begins in those very first months when parents patiently respond to their baby's smallest signals. You do not have to buy the most expensive toys. You do not have to turn your home into a classroom. What your child needs is the opportunity to explore, to try, to discover that their actions always create a response. It can be as simple as answering your baby's babbling, smiling when they look toward you, or giving them a few extra seconds to reach for a toy before stepping in to help. Those moments are telling your child's brain something incredibly important. You are capable. You have an impact. You can learn. And as that belief grows over time, it becomes an inner source of motivation, a kind of motivation that does not depend on praise, does not depend on rewards, but comes from the feeling, I can do this. But just as the brain begins building that sense of capability, it also starts working on something even more important, learning how to face emotions, because a child can be very smart, very curious. But if they do not know how to stay calm when they are afraid, do not know how to move through disappointment, do not know how to soothe themselves, then every other ability will also be limited. And what is remarkable is this. During those first months of life, your child cannot learn that alone. They borrow your nervous system to learn what peace feels like. People often think that teaching a child to manage emotions begins once they can speak, once they can explain why they feel sad, or once they are old enough to understand a parent's advice. But science tells a different story. That process begins much earlier, right from the very first months of life, when a baby cannot even say the word, Mom. Every time your baby startles, every time they burst into tears, or every time they feel uncomfortable, their brain is searching for one thing. Not an answer, but an anchor. If you have ever paid close attention, you may have noticed something remarkable. Some babies begin to calm down simply by being held, not because the pain has disappeared, not because the problem has been solved, but because their nervous system has just received a message. I do not have to face this alone. That is exactly how emotional regulation is built, not through instruction, but through experience. Every time your child is comforted, the brain learns that strong emotions eventually settle. Every time your child is held close, they learn that hard moments do not last forever. Over time, those experiences become the foundation that allows your child to comfort themselves later in life. The unfortunate part is this: many adults misunderstand this completely. They believe that if they hold their baby too often, the child will become spoiled. If they respond too quickly to crying, the child will become dependent. But during the first year of life, what children need first is not independence. It is a sense of safety, because only when they feel safe does the brain become willing to learn, willing to explore, willing to leave their parents' arms and step into the world. Think about a mountain climber. They dare to climb towering cliffs, not because they are fearless, but because they know the safety rope is always behind them. For a baby, their parents are that safety rope. The more your child trusts that someone will catch them when needed, the more boldly they will explore the world. It is one of the most beautiful paradoxes of child development. If you want your child to become independent, first let them feel deeply connected. If you want your child to become brave, first let them know that they will always have a place to come back to. There is another mistake that many parents make. They try to make sure their child never cries, never feels disappointed, never has to wait. We rush to hand over the toy, rush to distract them, rush to solve every discomfort, simply because we do not want to see them unhappy. That love is completely real, but sometimes it unintentionally takes away one of the brain's greatest opportunities, because the ability to tolerate small frustrations is the very beginning of resilience. If every obstacle is always removed by someone else, your child will struggle to learn that they are also capable of overcoming challenges on their own. That does not mean leaving your child alone, and it certainly does not mean letting them cry in despair. What matters is learning to recognize when your child truly needs help, and when they simply need a little more time to try on their own. A baby reaching for a toy may grumble, may seem frustrated, but sometimes that is not a sign of suffering. It is a sign of growth. The brain is learning how to solve a problem, trying a new strategy, discovering its own limits, and every time your child succeeds, even if it is only by reaching a few more centimeters, another message is written into the brain. I can do this. Maybe that is the greatest gift parents can ever give their child, not by doing everything for them, but by believing that they are capable of far more than they themselves know. Then one day, your child begins to crawl, begins to stand, begins to move a little farther away from you. But here is what is fascinating. After every little adventure, your child turns around and looks back at you, not because they are afraid, but because their brain is checking one thing. Is my safe place still there? That very moment becomes the foundation of secure attachment, and it also shapes the way your child will build relationships for the rest of their life. Years from now, your child may not remember the first day they learned to crawl. They may not remember the first time they stood up by themselves. They may not remember the very first toy they reached for, but their brain will remember, not as a conscious memory, but in the way it has been wired. If every time they look back, they see you there, the brain records a powerful belief. I can go farther, and if I need to, someone will always be there. It sounds so simple, but that feeling is the foundation of courage, because people only dare to explore the unknown when they know they have somewhere to return. Maybe you have seen this before. A baby crawls quickly into the next room, explores everything, touches everything, then suddenly turns around just to find their mother's eyes. The moment they see that you are still there, they continue their journey. That is not dependence. That is the brain checking for safety. Psychologists call this a secure base, a place to return to before moving forward again. Interestingly, adults live this way too. When you know someone truly believes in you, you are more willing to try, more willing to begin again after failure, more willing to step outside your comfort zone. A child is exactly the same. The only difference is this: to your child, you are that safe place. That is why your presence is far more important than always having the perfect answer. Your child does not need someone who knows everything. They need someone who makes them feel, no matter what happens, I am not alone. And then, as the first year slowly comes to an end, something wonderful begins to appear. You will notice your child smiling more, growing more curious, wanting to touch everything, wanting to communicate, wanting to imitate, wanting to explore. None of that happens by chance. It is the result of thousands of tiny moments, collected one day at a time. One hug, one gentle look, one moment when you patiently waited just a few more seconds, one moment when you let your child try on their own, one moment when you smiled back. No single moment is big enough to change an entire life, but thousands of tiny moments can. There is one question that many parents often ask: how do I know if I am raising my child the right way? Maybe that is not the most important question. There is another question that may be worth asking instead. When my child is with me, do they feel safe? If the answer is yes, then you have already done the most important thing. Because a child who feels safe will learn faster, will find it easier to love, will find it easier to trust other people, and will also learn to love themselves. You will never be able to protect your child from every failure. You cannot erase every sadness. You cannot stay beside them for their entire life. But you can give them one gift, a gift powerful enough to stay with them well into adulthood. It is the belief that no matter how difficult life becomes, they are still worthy of love. They still have value, and they will always have the strength to stand up one more time. Maybe that is the most beautiful part of being a parent. Not creating a perfect child, but helping a human being grow up with a peaceful heart, a steady mind, and the confidence that this world is a place worth stepping into.